What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is December 11th of 2023, and over the last week, I have gathered a ton of news stories that you need to know about. So I'm going to jump right in. Don't want to waste any time. I hope that you guys are doing well and had a wonderful weekend. Let's see here. First thing I want to share with you is this Green Charter Township Board rescinds Gotion Battery Project resolution. This came out December 4th, and it's good news. I don't know what it will change, but it's something that we need to be aware of, and it shows that the board is trying, right? So, during a special meeting on December 3rd, the Green Charter Township Board, of Trustees voted to rescind a resolution adopted by the previous board to support Gotion, the battery component manufacturing facility project, by a vote of 5-2, with trustees Sarah Rasmussen and Dan Hoey, sorry if I butchered that, voting no. At the last meeting, we talked about moving forward, and with this, we are going backward. It is not going to do anything. Township Clerk Corey Rebo said the purpose of rescinding the resolution, is to make a statement that the new board does not feel the same way about the project as the previous board. Rasmussen questioned whether the board should have a meeting with Gotion representatives before making any decisions regarding the project. Some in attendance agreed, suggesting that rather than rescinding the resolution of support, they set up a meeting with Gotion to discuss the project going forward. Supervisor Jason Cruz said he has not reached out to anyone at Gotion, nor have they tried to contact him. I thought when we took over, we would have some sort of interaction, but I haven't, Cruz said. If I were to reach out to Chuck Thelen, Gotion, Inc., North American Manufacturing VP Chuck Thelen, I am not comfortable with how that would be handled in the press. What we don't want is to have something in the press saying talks with Green Charter Township are continuing and things are moving forward with this project. I think that he's being really wise here because we know Chuck Thelen has an in to the Big Rapids Pioneer, which I'm reading from right now. And so any conversation that they have, of course, I think would be leaked to the Big Rapids Pioneer and probably skewed to make the new township look bad. That's me being cynical, possibly, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry. So I agree with what he said and what he's doing. I haven't had anybody reach out, he continued. They want this big project in here. Why don't they reach out? If you're going to put this thing in here, please come and talk to us. Let's open the lines of communication. Rasmussen suggested that it might be necessary for the township to reach out first. Well, I think that whoever reaches out first is offering the position of power to the other. And I think that's what the board, at least the supervisor, seems to think as well. Like, they should come to us. And I agree with that. You want to come into our area and build. You come to us. So far, I agree with the supervisor and what he is doing. Now, obviously, I don't have all the details. This is all the details I have. So maybe there's something I don't know. But from what I know, I think they're doing the right thing so far. Sometimes we have to be the bigger person, she said. If we don't ask as a board, we don't know what we need to know. In a statement to the Pioneer, Thelen said the comments from Cruz are inaccurate. Reports of Gotion Inc. not communicating with a new Green Charter Township board are untrue, Thelen said. I've personally tried to email the supervisor, but have not received responses yet due to reasons unknown. On November 14th, I emailed Supervisor Cruz on his official township email address to congratulate him on the election success while offering to answer any questions or concerns he might have. No response was received. On November 22nd, I invited Supervisor Cruz to join me, the Big Rapids mayor and county administrator, for a project status report. We had to cancel the meeting due to the lack of response from the township. It's important to note that Supervisor Cruz is a newly elected official and likely very busy, so I'd understand if he didn't see his emails yet. Thankfully, I did receive a response from the township clerk today, December 4th, so we have hopes of possible future collaboration. So that was updated on December 5th. Okay, with comments from Chuck Thelen. So they're talking, they've rescinded. that's pretty much the only updates right now that we have. I have hope that we can stop this Gotion project, actually, especially with people becoming more and more aware of, China buying up this land and so on and so forth. So that's the only update I have for Gotion as of right now. But I have high hopes. I think that it's definitely possible to cancel it. Zoltan the Man, good morning. Thank you guys for joining me once again. I didn't do a summary of all the things I have to share, but one of them is that the CDC, one of the heads of the CDC, director, there we go, Mandy Cohen, came to Detroit to discuss shots and masks. So unfortunately, it's 4 years now, about to be 4 years of this COVID stuff. And unfortunately, they're talking about an uptick. So like many business leaders across Michigan, mired in their 4th year of dealing with COVID-19, Maureen Krause thought the pandemic was pretty much behind us. But Krause, president and CEO of Detroit Regional Partnership, an economic development nonprofit serving 11 counties in southeast Michigan, got a wake-up call in early November when one of her 35 employees was diagnosed with COVID-19. Within a day or two, a few more employees also got the coronavirus. Krause immediately shut down the office and sent everyone home for a week. We wanted to make sure everyone was okay, she said. Unlike the early days of the pandemic, when we weren't sure what to do, we didn't even have tests, now we know what to do. Well, if you guys watched my video that I did last week, Wednesday, on Rumble, you would know that the PCR test, the creator of the PCR test, said that you are not supposed to use it the way that they're using it. You could basically test positive for anything the way that they're using it. So he died on August 19th of 2019, I believe it was, right before the pandemic started, which to me is very suspicious because he would have been very vocal about his PCR test being used the way it's being used. So I suggest, and I'm not a doctor, but I suggest you stay away from PCR tests. Don't trust them, especially look at the box, see where they come from. Come down here, triple threat. Some are calling the current environment a potential triple-demic. This threat of 3 viral infections hitting Michigan simultaneously could pose issues for businesses, employees, and communities. Dr. Mary Cohen, director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, was in Detroit Thursday, talking up the importance of staying up to date with vaccines. The good news is that we are at the beginning of winter virus season, so there's still time to get vaccinated, Cohen said. The severity of the season is in our hands. We know we will see more viruses and bacteria circulating at holiday parties or offices, but we know we have more tools to treat them if people get COVID, flu, or RSV. COVID-19 is still here. I think that was the second question. What advice do you have regarding the need for vaccines for COVID-19, influenza, RSV? While we may all expect and anticipate winter illnesses like influenza, COVID-19, and RSV, the difficult truth is that sometimes these illnesses can be dangerous or deadly for some in the community. Barb says, does anyone know how they can get away with offering new shots under the Emergency Act? I thought that was over. Excellent question. I can look into that, but I do not have an answer right now. But I think that it's important to know that. So thank you for that. And I will try to get that for you for Wednesday, or actually next Monday. I am going to do a show. Carlet, good morning. Thank you very much for hanging out. So this was just to show they're still trying to push the vaccines. And yet, if you come over to this article that just dropped today, some COVID vaccines produce unintended immune response in recipients. And this is a study that came out of Nature. And Nature is a highly rated scientific medical journal. And so most people trust Nature if you trust authority. But they're the ones that brought this study out. So researchers in a landmark new study have discovered a sequence within the Pfizer mRNA vaccine that produces an unintended immune response in the body, which experts are calling a massive developmental and regulatory failure. So at the same time that all these different studies are coming out saying that something is not quite right with the synthetic messenger ribonucleic acid, mRNA, that they're still recommending it, even though there are so many different studies coming out saying that, it does cause some problems. So let's get into this, such as that used in Moderna and Pfizer vaccine enables the body to create a specific spike protein mimicking SARS-CoV-2. The body reacts to the foreign protein and generates protective immunity, which theoretically neutralizes the real virus when it enters the body. Researchers from the Medical Research Council Toxicology Unit have discovered that the cellular machinery that reads mRNAs slips when confronted with repeats of the chemical modification commonly found in mRNA therapeutics. In addition to the target protein, these slips lead to the production of off-target proteins, triggering an unintended immune response, said a press release from the study published in Nature on December 6th. The MRC team redesigned the mRNA vaccine to prevent further harmful immune responses from the spike proteins. The researchers identified that bases with a chemical modification called N1, oh man, big long word, which are currently contained in mRNA therapies, are responsible for the slips along the mRNA sequence. When the MRC team collaborated with researchers from the universities of Kent, Oxford, and Liverpool, they found an unintended immune response occurred in 1/3 of the 21 patients in the study who were inoculated with the Pfizer mRNA vaccine. Now, this would explain to me why so many people around me have so many different ailments. That two people don't have the same slip. So, unfortunately, one person might have lymphomia, I think is what it's called, where all your lymph nodes swell up. And then another person could have, let's say 50 skin tags that pop up on their back for no reason. So that also helps to elude, because you can't pinpoint exactly what could go wrong from a slip because everybody's different. It depends on what is being read. So re-engineering the mRNA vaccine, the team re-engineered the error-prone genetic sequences in the synthetic mRNA to avoid these unintended and off-target effects. We can remove the error-prone code from the mRNA in vaccines so the body will make the proteins we want in immune response without inadvertently making other proteins as well. The error-prone code. This also refers to what I was talking about last week in my Rumble show about DNA and how they look at our body and our immune system as an operating system that they can hack or that they could code. And so using error-prone code, using code and lines of code and reading, this is all acting as though your immune system in your body is an operating system to be potentially hacked. The safety concern for future mRNA medicines is that misdirected immunity has huge potential to be harmful, so off-target immune responses should always be avoided. Come down here, ribosomes in cells produce proteins from natural and synthetic mRNAs, and a precise positioning of the ribosome on the mRNA is needed to make the right proteins. The ribosome reads the mRNA sequence 3 bases at a time, and any tiny deviation that happens here massively distorts the code and the resulting protein, said the Cambridge press release. So I think that's interesting. Sequence 3 bases at a time. The number 3 is used quite often in different religions, and it seems like it's one of those sacred numbers. And it's interesting to me that it's 3 bases at a time. DNA itself is interesting. I'm not saying that I understand it completely by any means, but I think obviously it's the code that God created or the grand architect created. And so how it works should be fascinating. But When the ribosome is confronted with the string of these modified bases called N1 something or other in the mRNA, it slips around 10% of the time, causing the mRNA to be misread and unintended proteins to be produced, enough to trigger an immune response. Authors that said that according to WHO guidelines for mRNA vaccines, manufacturers should provide details of unexpected ORFs, open reading frames, referring to cellular modification on a DNA level. Like, what are they doing? That's what I want to know. I'm looking at this stuff. I'm going around it. I don't know all the jargon, but like, why are they trying to hack and use, modify at the cellular level? I don't know. Given that this study was conducted under the auspices of the United Kingdom's government, we must assume UK regulators, manufacturers, and international regulatory agencies, including the FDA, were apprised of the data many months ago. We await their account of what steps they have taken to investigate why the formation of off-target proteins was not discovered sooner, what toxic effects they might have caused, and what steps they are taking to prevent harm in the future and to inform the public of these findings. Social responses. So this, in a December 6th post, Dr. Jonathan Engler said, "This is devastating. A design flaw in the mRNA injections results in them making random proteins which will be massively pro-inflammatory because the product is distributed throughout the body. This happens everywhere. This likely explains the huge variety of immune disorders reported in association with these products." So, just wanted to give you an update on that. I don't understand why they're pushing vaccines when these new issues are coming up at the same time. Well, I guess I do understand, but people need to start thinking about it, why are they doing this? If they have any danger at all, why are they still pushing it? Now, this is from Justin Barclay here in Michigan, and we're going to watch this 26-second video from Mandy Cohen, who is the CDC director.
Get your updated COVID and flu vaccines and your RSV vaccine if you're over 60. It's not too late to get vaccinated if you haven't already. And use additional layers of protection, like avoiding people who are sick, washing your hands, improving ventilation, and wearing a mask. And if you do get sick, I know it's hard, but stay home so you don't spread germs to others. And get tested so you know what you have and you can get treatment.
Very simple message. Again, you got to ask why they're giving this message out. I got one more video really quick, so I shouldn't take the headset off. This is Jim Breuer. I think that's how you say his last name. I've watched him a lot, so I should know. He's a comedian. He was on, it looks like The Blaze. What's his name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now, but this individual is absolutely correct when he says that we're at war, and we've been at war at least since 2020.
You had mayors?
Oh, where can I find this study, says Barb. I will have it linked down in the description, but it was also, really quick, in this article, it should, yes, see, it says a press release. So if I click this, in theory, it should bring me directly to that, and I should be able to put that down below for you. Wow, it's taking forever to load. There we go. So, yes, this is the University of Cambridge study, and it should have all the information. So I'm going to read this myself as well. I just found this. Obviously, it just came out today, so I haven't been able to read this yet, but I'm so happy you guys are interested in reading it. I love that.
You had mayors? Despicable, disgusting. They're not human. They're disgusting. And they should be held accountable. All of them. Every single last one of them. Every mayor, every governor that shamed you, terrorized you, tore your family apart, made you lose your job, divided everybody. That was the most disgusting display of humanity. And these are the people that are controlling my life and your life that they're taking my money from and doing whatever they want with it. I don't have a choice where my taxes go. That time, that's how I saw it. I saw it as a complete takeover. And then in my own house, you know, these kids are all indoctrinated. So the kids are like, Dad's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, your father's putting up. And I saw what they were going through. I had nieces. You know, I had my daughter come up to me, and a niece that I love said, Dad, is everything cool? Because everyone thinks you're making wacky videos. I felt we're at war. 100%. This is war, however you want to describe it. It's a war on your common sense. It's a war on the control of your life. It's the war on your spirituality. It's the war of your conscience and your mind. And it's not a game. It's real. Unfortunately, humanity doesn't believe that evil exists. And boy, does it exist.
Does.
And you'll be horrified when you realize where they're all located.
Washington,
I'm not
DC.
sure some people
Vatican.
can handle that. But I think the ones that can are very ready. Very ready. They're done.
So I definitely agree with him. I've been saying that. That's what January 6th showcases. That's what the Whitmer kidnapping, the FBI trying to entrap Michiganders. It's the same concept. This is the government at war with the people. And I obviously don't want that to be true. I want our government to be working for us, not for themselves. But, you know, what my dad used to say, want in one hand and, you know, in the other, see what fills up faster? Old saying for you. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here. I want to show you what Peter Sweden is saying. Now, this comes out of, right now, it's over in Norway. But your milk, our milk, we need to pay attention to what's going on to our cows, okay? Because they are poisoning our cows, and I have the details. So something very worrying to tell you is Peter Sweden. They are planning on poisoning our milk in the name of stopping climate change. They already are poisoning milk in Norway right now. They're giving cows chemicals to stop them from farting so much. I'm serious. It's awful. Think about that for just a second. Like, instead of having natural farts, we're going to put chemicals into what we eat and drink. Of course, you will not be hearing anything about this on the mainstream media, so that is why I have to write this article and warn you of what is happening. For some reason, it has been decided that cows are the enemy. The Netherlands plan on seizing thousands of farms and reduce the number of livestock. In New Zealand, the left-wing government was just defeated after farmers united to oppose them and their new fart tax to reduce emissions from cows. But now, countries are beginning to feed toxic chemicals to cows in order to get them to have less burps and farts. Yes, you read that correctly. Why is that, you may ask? To reduce climate emissions and to meet the 2030 climate goals, of course. By the year 2030, the agriculture industry has to reduce climate emissions by 5 million tons of CO2. In other words, this, of course, goes back to UN Agenda 2030, global goals, which none other than Bill Gates himself is funding. The goal is that all ruminant livestock used for dairy and meat shall be fed methane-suppressing chemicals in just a few years. Again, I have an article that says they're already doing it in some places. What are they calling this new milk? One dairy producer is calling it future milk, while another is calling it climate milk. It's not some crazy future conspiracy theory. I went to the grocery store in Norway, and the new climate milk is already on the shelves. Which is a little confusing why they're saying in the next couple of years they're going to do this. Maybe he means on a huge scale, but there are already farms that are doing this to their cows, and there's already climate milk on the shelves. I decided to do some research on this chemical that they are feeding the cows, and I was shocked. The chemical that they are giving the cows is classified as corrosive, flammable, irritant, and a health hazard, but it gets worse. Of course, they're going after fertility. The chemical they are feeding the cows is suspected of damaging fertility or the unborn child. It has a warning label for reproductive toxicity. It has been found to be very harmful to the male reproductive system in rats. In other words, is our milk supply being poisoned in the name of climate change? No, probably in the name of depopulation. The worst part is, it seems like nobody in the mainstream media is talking about this. People have no clue what is happening to their milk. So he wrote an article to raise awareness. I found this article, Breuer. It has saved 50,000 tons of CO2 to date. This came out July of this year. So a Swiss-Dutch human and animal nutrition group, DSM Fermench, reports that Breuer, since its first developed today, has enabled the reduction of 50,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. The company is now looking to achieve 100,000 tons of CO2e as the next milestone for the feed additive, which is targeted at methane emissions reduction in ruminants. Come down here, again in May, the French company behind the Baby Bell cheese brand announced it was rolling out Breuer across the majority of its milk supply farms in Slovakia. So this cheese brand is already being effective. In the Netherlands, Nestle and this other company are committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from dairy farms by 50% in 2030 through regenerative culture, including the use of Breuer, while over 150 Friesland Campania farms participated in a 6-month pilot, which confirmed that Breuer can easily be introduced at scale without affecting animal health, milk production, or milk composition. Really? 6 months and they know that, huh? So it continues on, but that's the main shtick. Be careful with milk. Unfortunately, we have to be careful with milk. I'm a little bit all over the place here today, but Vivek Ramaswamy warns Hunter Biden indictment might be part of Democrats' grand plan to sideline Biden and pick a new puppet for 2024. This comes out of the Gateway Pundit. I have not heard this directly out of his mouth, but I'm assuming that they're not lying. I'm sure we could find it somewhere. But if he said that, I actually think that's very, very, very probable. That's exactly what they're doing. That they're trying to get Biden out so they can put in whomever. I still think Whitmer, but some people think Newsom. You know, another really quick thing, a little rant. I did not watch the debate. I don't know if you guys watched the debate, but I'm very surprised at Fox News in particular, and I don't know why. I should know better. It is still legacy media, you know, but they are all for Nikki Haley, like so much so that they are making it look like Nikki Haley was attacked by 3 men or whatever on the stage, like she's some kind of victim, which drives me nuts. Like, really, you're gonna victimize somebody that's trying to be president of the United States? And then other people think that she would be an excellent pick, that Trump would actually pick her to be the VP. And I'm like, that would ruin him. I'm not a Trump fan whatsoever, but there is no way anybody that I know, in my maybe Gen X and lower, maybe that's the difference because of information, that would be cool with Nikki Haley being the VP. Like, absolutely not. If anything, Carrie Lake, I've heard rumors of Carrie Lake. That's very probable if you want a female VP. But otherwise, I'm still going with Tucker Carlson. I think he was initiated. I think that's why he got fired. And I heard Melania Trump said something about Tucker Carlson as well. So that's still my pick. But I'm just so surprised that Fox News also calls Vivek Ramaswamy, like, doesn't like him. Says that he's 4th place. Like, pretty much all of the legacy media says he always loses. And again, anybody that's online, like, Vivek is always smashing it. So it's such a weird juxtaposition. You know, I don't watch Fox News, but the people I talk to do. And so it's always weird to me to hear them say, Nikki Haley, they like her. It's like, she's like the worst one on that stage. I mean, and that is hard to beat Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, or the guy I don't even know his name, Chris Christie. Sorry for the little rant, but I just, what do you guys think? Like, Nikki Haley, really? Or, what do you think that would do to Trump? Would people like that? Do you know people that would like that? Just let me know. I mean, maybe I'm way out there because I don't watch Fox News, but I just can't believe that that's how they spin it. Jumping back in. So this, I almost feel bad for letting the cat out of the bag, but it's too far gone, signed, sealed, and delivered at this point to turn it around. So what the hell? The more the fake news hates on him, the more compromised judicial system indicts him. The more rank-and-file Democrat voters spew endless amounts of venom in his direction, the more we love the guy. How y'all haven't picked up on that to date has truly been something to behold. Good work, jackasses. And this is what so many Trump lovers agree with. Like, they are making him a martyr. I mean, even right here, Bill Burr, which I don't think he's that funny, whatever, but he says liberals are effing stupid to have turned Trump into a martyr. And that's exactly what they've done. So when the whole dictator comes up, because I don't know if you guys heard, they asked him, are you going to be a dictator or something? But the whole point of that is to get the word dictator and Trump together in your collective unconscious. Like this is information war. This is, psychological warfare, I guess you could say, because they're hyping up the left. Oh, he said he's going to be a dictator day one. And really, he just said he was going to close the border and he was going to drill for oil. So you have the people, the Republicans are like, yeah, obviously I'm for drill because we want energy prices to be cheap. And we're for closing the border because we're being invaded. But the fact that he embraced it for day one, it's all part of this narrative. Because right now, there are cities that are out of control, just a little bit. Maybe a lot. I mean, Seattle, you could say a lot. In 2024, unfortunately, that virus will spread to all the rest. But even right now, I know people that would be totally okay with Trump coming in and putting down martial law to get the cities under control. I know people. Whether you agree with it or not, doesn't matter. The fact that right now it's not even, let's say it's a 4 out of 10. Next year, they're going to crank it up to 12 out of 10. So how many more people are going to be like that individual that is going to be okay with martial law to get the cities under control, to get this country under control, to get the border under control? They will actually be okay with a dictator by the time the chaos is complete. And in fact, again, some of them are even okay with it now because they love him and they trust him. Whatever you say about that doesn't really matter. This is what I see happening. I'm just reporting what I see. So now you have Trump in office and it's chaos and he brings down martial law. You have the left will say, I told you so, he's a dictator, and because they don't trust him and they don't like him, they're going to be very upset about it, and the right is going to be very happy about it. And this is all like, I feel like there's a band, conductor that's going like this right now. And like, this is just part of it. It's just the beginning of the dictator mentality of Trump being in your mindset. And so I just wanted to give you my ideas on that because that's what I see going on. Now let me know. I mean, is it far-fetched? I love your guys' viewpoint. I am totally okay with talking to, anybody really. I have communists in my family that are known, like they say it out loud, I'm a communist. I will talk to them all day. I will try to understand why they feel that way, even though I've read the Communist Manifesto and I know that abolition of the family and of private property are goals, and I'm not for those goals. But again, I will talk to you if you're a communist. I will talk to you if you love Trump and think he'll be a great dictator. I don't care. So let me know what you guys think. I'm very interested. The media is hyping up carbon passports to restrict travel. So this is another Zero Hedge. I love Zero Hedge. It's a financial blog or publication rather. And I go there probably first. I'm not gonna lie. I like that Tyler Durden from Fight Club. is the author every time. So that way it doesn't really matter who the author is. Let's just get this information, right? So a talking point that is now everywhere in the media is the notion that in the near future, travel is highly likely to be restricted through the introduction of a so-called carbon passport. Last week, CNN ran a piece created by something called The Conversation, which had the timeline, "It's time to limit how often we can travel abroad. Carbon passports may be the answer." Within this analysis, readers were told that record-breaking heat waves, wildfires, and extreme weather events are being driven in part by people going on holiday. Zoltan the man, you're pretty on point. The system really wants Trump. Yes, the system, and it will be. It will be Trump. And again, I don't know. Maybe it will be Carrie Lake. What do you guys think, VP-wise? Some people think Vivek, although I doubt that. Tourism is part of the problem, the piece asserts, adding, the tourism sector generates about 1/10 of the greenhouse gas emissions that are driving the climate crisis. See, they want us to be locked down. I mean, it's just more and more evidence. And they're taking away they're taking away cars. And so they need to replace it with something, which is why I have the high-speed rail update coming up. Billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars going into the high-speed rail to replace cars. So public transportation, just like China. China has been working on their high-speed rails since 2010 or something. Tourism is a part of the problem. Okay. It goes on to suggest that the introduction of carbon passports, which would see every traveler being assigned a yearly carbon allowance that they cannot exceed, could ration travel. Now, I've showed on this channel people that can't afford to travel can sell to rich people who can buy carbon credits. So now rich people can just pay money in order to travel more, and poor people will never be able to travel. Well, no, we'll be able to travel in the metaverse. We'll have to have an Oculus over our eyes in order to travel. This concept may seem extreme, the writer states, before telling you that it isn't. And it's probably a good idea because of how we're on the verge of collapse. How on the verge of collapse the environment is. I think that was a poorly written sentence. But anyway, boiling temperatures will probably diminish the allure of traditional beach destinations anyway, claims the author. This isn't just one alarmist story languishing somewhere in the dark depths of CNN's website. It's everywhere. Dear Citizen 1138, we regret to inform you that your request to travel has been denied, as you have reached the limit of your carbon allowance for this period. That is the dystopian nightmare we could see if we allow them to do this. I'm going to click on it and see what they got going on here. Share this tab instead for a minute. So yeah, CNN, it's time to limit how often we can travel abroad. Carbon passports may be the answer. Carbon passports be introduced to limit travel. Carbon passport could restrict how we travel. Be introduced for holiday makers. Carbon passports limit how much we travel in the future. And armchair travel and carbon passports. Experts predict dystopian future if we don't cut emissions now. The propaganda, information, including another piece published this week by Business Insider, all cites a report written by a consultancy agency called the Future Laboratory, which was released by a travel company called Intrepid. The report states that these allowances will manifest as passports that force people to ration their carbon in line with the global carbon budget, which is 750 billion tons until 2050. By 2040, we can expect to see limitations imposed on the amount of travel that is permitted each year. It continues, adding that by then, it will be unusual to see members of Generation Alpha without a carbon footprint tracker on their smartphones. Every Uber ride, plane journey, and trip to the supermarket will be logged into their devices, noting their carbon footprint in real time. Generation Alpha, isn't that perfect as well? You know, Gen Z was the last one of this age, potentially, or this society that they've built. Sounds like a lot of fun. Not only will you own nothing and like it, if this progresses as these experts suggest, you won't be able to go anywhere either. Of course, people like Bill Gates, John Kerry, and their ilk will still be allowed to constantly fly around in their private jets because they are the solution. Your one budget EasyJet flight to Malaga every couple of years is the big problem. I think, actually, before I jump into this homeschooling here in Michigan, that I do have a video I'd like to show you. Here we go. We'll do this one. So, Wide Awake Media, in lockstep with all the other globalist puppets, John Kerry's daughter and newly appointed WHO Special Envoy for Climate Change and Health, Vanessa Kerry, is now attempting to paint the imagery climate crisis as a health crisis. The climate crisis is a health crisis. We see 7 million people a year dying from air pollution, for example. That's more than we saw in the entire COVID pandemic over 3 years. Despite trying their damnedest to scare everyone into submission to the net zero climate scam agenda with fraudulent graphs, climate models, and blood red weather maps, people just aren't buying into it. So a new approach is being adopted. Present the non-existent climate crisis as a public health crisis in the template of the COVID pseudo-pandemic. Only a minute long, and we're going to watch John Kerry's daughter.
Obviously, when people think about climate change, they don't necessarily think about health. You were appointed, the first to be appointed in that position. What does it tell us about the importance of health in the climate change issue?
Well, I think we have learned with great understanding in the most recent years that the climate crisis is a health crisis. And already we see 7 million people a year dying from air pollution, for example. That's more than we saw in the entire COVID pandemic over 3 years. And that's one person every 5 seconds. So that by the time I complete my next sentence, someone else will have died. And we see this in every aspect of health, the way climate change is impacting our lived experience. And so there's a very real opportunity for us to have a health-centered approach to climate change and to be able to ensure that we're protecting how we live, how we breathe, how we walk, and what we can do in our lives. And so the appointment, I think, is truly just an opportunity to continue to really flag the urgency of what we face.
All right, and so that is actually off the heels of the World Economic Forum's meetings. That was September and November, I think, something like that, where they actually did discuss the fact that people don't seem to be taking the climate crisis as such an emergency like they did with the health crisis. And the health crisis, we allowed them to take all our rights away, basically. We allowed them to trample us. And so we're not allowing them to do that for climate. So how do we get it to happen for climate like health? Oh, I see. We'll bridge the gap. We'll make it so that the climate crisis is a health crisis. So that way we can justify and do exactly like we did in 2020, but with climate instead. Like, again, psychological operations. It's an info war, which, by the way, Alex Jones was let back onto Twitter, which he never should have been banned to begin with. Free speech, but hey, I'm glad he's back. Again, he's not completely my taste anymore. I went through an Alex Jones phase, but he still has done great work with the cremation of care at Bohemian Grove. He's the one that, let me just type in cremation. Whoops, that's not how you spell it. Bohemian Grove. This was Alex Jones. No, why isn't it showing? There we go.
And
so Bohemian
Grove, they
was a bunch of politicians, rich people, I don't know why I can't see the actual video footage of it, but they were doing what's called the cremation of care ceremony, where they burn something.
Here you go, beauty.
Here. They're all in robes and stuff, and they do a little ritual in the middle of the woods with an owl. And this was Alex Jones. So that was one of the big ones. He also predicted 9/11 a couple days or a month right before it happened. So he's right about some things, wrong about others, just like everybody, right? He's a human being. So I'm glad he's back. Interested to see what he's going to come up with next. All right, debate heats up around changing Michigan's homeschooling laws. So December 6th, this came out. They are coming after the homeschoolers. They just want to know who's being homeschooled, and it's for the children's safety. It's definitely for the children. It's not because they want your children and the government wants to raise them themselves like they have been, so that way they can brainwash them. No, it's that they care about the children and want them to stay safe. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel and a Democratic state lawmaker are calling for more state oversight into homeschooling following recent reports of child abuse, where officials say homeschool helped conceal mistreatment by caregivers. Michigan has virtually no requirements to make sure homeschool children are really receiving an education. The government should not be involved in that. It should not be on the government. It's on the parents. The parents are the ones that have the rights to the child. Now, again, communists don't agree with that. And it's part of the private property thing, right? It's not, your child is not your property because there is no private property. And of course, the human being isn't property, but they're trying to be able to take your children away and teach them whatever they want. You know, obviously I'm for parents' rights. They should know what's best. Not always, of course, there are bad parents in the world. Of course there are. But it's still not up to the government. That's not what the government is for. The government is not for raising our children. Advocates for the education method say parents should not have to be held accountable by the government for making decisions about their own children. But a case out of Clinton County announced Monday by Nessel highlights why some requirements should be in place. She said, of course. Oh, look at it over here, this one example. I'm going to make a bunch of legislation and bigger government for this one example here. Zoltan, the man, she looks like a Nephilim offspring. Are you talking about Nessel here? Yeah, definitely. I'm not a huge fan of this individual. She's not a good AG for the people. She's perfect for big government. At school, officials can sometimes spot when a child faces abuse at home. Sometimes. In the Clinton County case, Nessel's office charged two couples, Jerry and Tamal, and Tammy and Joel Brown, Flory, in what they described as a conspiracy to financially profit from adopting nearly 30 children, some of whom they accused of abusing. Now, obviously, that is awful, but what's up with the foster care systems, right? They're not good. But the abuse was shielded, the Attorney General said. One reason why this abuse was able to go undetected in the Floor home was due to the fact that all children were homeschooled. Again, how did they get all these children? How is it the government didn't know about it in other ways? It's just an excuse to get after the people homeschooling. Again, to know how many kids are in each home. It's all about data. They're trying to get that data. There has to be some sort of monitoring so that those children can benefit from those protections. State Rep. Colzar of Plymouth, chair of House Education Committee, wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. God, I hate that. It's Twitter. I hate that he tried to switch it. Michigan is one of only 11 states that doesn't count or register homeschool children, and abusive parents are taking advantage of that to avoid being found out. In an interview with Detroit Free Press, Colzar said, "The vast majority of homeschool parents do an excellent job, and I totally respect their right and appreciate their ability to do it. But at school, students are in the presence of mandated reporters and adults who might be able to recognize abuse. Homeschool students may not be around those kinds of adults," he said. May, possibly, probably. You see all the jargon? It would be responsible for us to know who is being homeschooled, he said. I don't think that it is inhibiting anybody's ability to be a homeschool parent. Just simply knowing who is being homeschooled is good. That's step one, right? Baby steps, or what David Icke would say, the totalitarian tiptoe. That's what they're doing. Michigan is only one of 11 states that doesn't Oops. Wow. All kinds of stuff. There we go. Homeschool accountability debate heats up. It appears the debate around whether Michigan's homeschooling laws should be strengthened may be gaining traction. Such calls for regulation aren't new. In 2015, when Obama sold us out to the United Nations like nail in the coffin, leaders called for more accountability around homeschooling after a mother removed her 2 children from public school for homeschool, then abused and murdered them. Obviously, that is awful. But how would knowing that they were there homeschooled have stopped that? In 2022, the Detroit Free Press published an investigation into lax homeschooling regulations, highlighting the case of a 12-year-old child who concerned family members said could not read due to educational neglect under the guise of homeschooling. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure our public schools are failing right now, and that majority of kids can't read, write, or do arithmetic at the level that they're supposed to. I'm fairly certain that homeschooled kids do much better because they have one-on-one attention with a person that loves them because they gave birth to them or helped in that process. Like, that's the thing. No offense to teachers out there. I'm sure there are great teachers that love their kids. But there are also a lot of people out there that hate men or hate kids or whatever, and that they're teachers. And I know because when I was at Starbucks, I worked with an elementary school teacher that hated breeders. That's what she said. I hate breeders. She would say that at work. And so you have these people that don't love your child and that they have 20 kids and that maybe they like 1 out of 20. And like, it's not even comparable. If you actually have someone at home that can teach the kid, all you need is, a couple hours a day when they're really young, tops. There's no doubt about it. Homeschooling is 100 bazillion times better than co-parenting with the government. Now, obviously, they've set up a system that makes it extremely difficult for one of the parents to stay home and homeschool. And I'm sorry for that. We need to change the system. In fact, the younger generation, Gen Z in particular, seems to really think that the trad wife life, they seem to know that women trying to be CEOs and like do that hustle culture and what is it called, boss bitches or whatever, that actually it's really not fun. Women don't really like it on average, and they don't want to go that route. So millennials and Gen Z, or rather millennials actually, really took the hit on that one, where they wasted their 20s trying to be boss bitches instead of finding a husband and having children, which is a very important thing for the world. But I digress. Colzar said it's important that any legislation doesn't prevent homeschooling. We know that from the pandemic, a lot of kids didn't return to school. Well, it's important to know who all those kids are. No, it's not. You don't need to know, government. You don't need to know. Because what you're doing there is you are seeing what parents no longer trust the school system. Like, you are categorizing, oh, they were in school, but now they're not since COVID. And so now they're in this little group, they're on a list. It's all about information. And I say no. Don't give the information of where the kids are and what they're doing, because the government is not out for our best interests, obviously. In 2015, lawmakers proposed requiring parents and caregivers to register their children at homeschool with their local district. The children would have to meet twice a year with an adult outside the home, such as a pediatrician, licensed social worker, counselor, or teacher. But the proposal was met with an avalanche of opposition from homeschool advocates and families. Which, again, if you took your kid out of school in the last 3 years, it's because you know how tyrannical our government has become, maybe has always been, but certainly has displayed for us in the last 3 years. That resistance isn't going away. Rep. Jamie Green from Richmond serves on the House Education Committee and is a homeschool parent. She blasted any registration requirements. Requiring homeschool students to register with the state is an egregious violation of parental rights, an invasion of privacy, and an unwarranted government overreach, Green said in a statement Tuesday. Now, I've already told you I have a list of politicians that have been naughty, and I also added this individual as a politician that's been nice. And this is just so that when the elections come up, we know who's been naughty and who's been nice. And I think that Green is absolutely correct. I'm going to look into more of what this individual says, of course. But when it comes to homeschool, I agree. And they got put on the nice list right now because of it. This homeschool registration proposal not only disregards parental rights, but also misguidedly focuses on regulating a successful and legitimate educational choice, diverting attention and resources away from addressing systemic problems within government agencies. Right. Fix your own schools. Don't worry about the homeschooled kids. How about you teach the kids how to read, write, and do arithmetic? Stop teaching them about sex and everything else. Just teach them how to read, write, and do arithmetic. Just minutes after Nestle's press conference Monday and a few days after the Washington Post published its piece, the Michigan Christian Homeschool Network posted on Facebook that the organization is unequivocally opposed to any and all abuse of children. We believe that those who abuse children should be prosecuted by the adequate child abuse laws that already exist in our state. Right? More laws is not going to help anybody. It's going to harm the people that want to homeschool. Homeschool advocates have long challenged requirements that would involve state oversight. In 1993, the Supreme Court ruled in a 4-3 decision that a requirement for homeschool teachers to be certified was unconstitutional. That decision helped pave the way for homeschooling to take off in the state. That is good to hear because obviously the government regulations, the government standards might not be my standards. And so your government standards should not come in to my home where I'm teaching my child. That decision helped. Israel Wayne with the Michigan Christian Homeschool Network said his organization believes additional oversight would not decrease reports of child abuse. Instead, Wayne said cases such as Flora and Brown case should lead to more calls into accountability over Children's Protective Services. Yes, CPS. CPS and the foster care system. Sorry, they help traffic children, okay? And the fact that they're not the ones that are reporting on these couples with their 30 children and abusing the system, like this is your government agencies that are covering up crimes. But there's often failure on the part of Child Protective Service to adequately prosecute known cases of child abuse, he said. And so we would see many of these cases as being reflective more of a systemic problem within CPS than a systemic problem within home education. Derek says homeschool is the limits for public schools. It shows how bad the public schools are by comparison, so they must remove the comparative. Yes, right. Competition, right? The government doesn't want to compete with parents. They don't want parents to even have children, which again, I keep talking about my last week's Rumble video, but I went into DNA, but I also went into eggs. Women's eggs now can be taken out and frozen, and companies like all the big ones, Facebook, McDonald's, Walmart, all Google, Amazon, they're all giving incentives to freeze your eggs. What you're doing is you're giving the power of life to corporations. They don't need human beings anymore. They have sperm banks and they have egg banks, and they're creating artificial wombs. It sounds sci-fi. It is sci-fi for now, but it's about to be sci-non-fi. And I really hope people stop giving their eggs, giving their life force to corporations. It's so dangerous. Sorry about the little rant. So, more chaos. Whitmer signs Michigan election law overhaul that aims to prevent chaos. Now, this is the upside down that we're living in. Very Orwellian. It's meant to prevent chaos. I bet you that this will cause 10 times more chaos than what was previously occurring. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer on Thursday signed into law a sweeping series of election bills. Oh, right before the election. Don't you love that? Let's change it all up. That's going to help with less chaos. That supporters contend will boost Democratic participation and prevent chaos in the event of disputed elections. Among other things, the new law expands voter registration, criminalizes poll worker intimidation, regulates political ads that use artificial intelligence, and tightens the election certification process that former President Donald Trump tried to disrupt following his 2020 loss. In Michigan, we are proving through our actions that we stand for fundamental American values of freedom and democracy, Whitmer said in a signing ceremony at the headquarters of the NAACP's Detroit branch, where she was joined by local leaders and voting right advocates from across the state. Derek says less chaos equals chance of them getting caught rigging the election. Last one was too close for comfort. Yes, I mean, elections were definitely rigged. And again, I know I keep saying it, but I want people to understand. I'm not saying it because I just love Trump so much that I can't admit that he lost. That is not my position whatsoever. My position is there's no way Biden was the most popular president. There's just no way that he won certain districts. Like, there were just so many suspicious things that occurred. But it's Fall Guy Biden. He was supposed to be in. There's no way Trump could be in right now because the collapse has been timed for this time slot, right? So for this 4 years, we're going to have the banking collapse before the elections, in my opinion. This is just from what I see, what I listen to, and what I've read. We're going to have a lot of issues. It's the controlled demolition was not meant to happen under Trump's watch. It's absolutely meant to happen under bumbling Biden, right? No one's going to be surprised when everything goes to hell in a handbasket because we have bumbling Biden. It's the play, it's not Hamlet, whatever you want to call it, New World Order play. That's what we're watching. And so, yeah, Trump, he won, but he didn't win. And so now more chaos for next year. The AI thing, the artificial intelligence, not being able to do political ads with AI, it's like, how are you going to prove that, for one? And I think it's already occurred. If I go to the Midwesterner, I might be able to pull that up. But yeah, these new rules, if you come down here too, I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty here, but it talks about Christina Caramo and the Michigan GOP chair having less power with these new rules. Again, the Michigan GOP chair, Christina Caramo, was a grassroots pick. So the establishment going up against her and doing everything they can to take away her power, to make her look bad, that's not surprising to me whatsoever. It's unfortunate that it's like that the GOP establishment GOP is fighting against the grassroots GOP. But yeah, they take away some of her power. While Republican leaders did not immediately respond to requests for comment Thursday, GOP lawmakers almost uniformly opposed the changes, arguing they could compromise election security and increase administrative costs for both the state and for local election clerks. The new voter registration law, for instance, may necessitate government technology upgrades and requires the state to send opt-out notices to citizens who will now be automatically registered to vote when they apply for a driver's license or Medicaid benefits, or when they're released from prison. Whoa. So will now be automatically registered to vote when you're released from prison. Wow. Michigan already has one of the highest voter registration rates in the country because they already do this. Again, I never freaking registered to vote, but they sent me a voter registration card after I got my ID in 2019. So this has been going on. But sponsoring Rep. Penelope, whoever that is, from East Lansing, I apologize once again, has called her bills the next step toward ensuring that every citizen has the opportunity to vote. I'm pretty sure that if you were in jail, you weren't supposed to vote. And I should know, I should know these rules. Things change all the time, so I don't know. Let me know if you know. About being able to vote if you're in prison or coming out of prison. Another law Whitmer signed Thursday will allow 16-year-olds to pre-register to vote so that they are prepared to cast a ballot when they're eligible at 18. No. So that the government knows the exact date that they are going to be 18, so they can get a phone call from the freaking recruiter's office saying, "Hey, you want to join? You want to sell your soul to the government for 8 years?" because it's 8 years no matter what. You can do 4 or 6 active duty, and you technically can do all 8, but no matter what, you're signing up for 8 years. It's usually 2 years inactive or 4 years inactive. Another law Whitmer signed Thursday. Oh, yes. Which, by the way, my nephew turned 18 recently, and within the week that he turned 18, the recruiter was calling him. Now, possibly he talked to the recruiter at school, and I didn't know that, so I will give the benefit of the doubt there. But I hate that recruiters are at high schools as well. I do not agree with that whatsoever. Trust me, we will be letting them know exactly how to exercise their options to vote in every election via voting early or voting in person on Election Day. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, a fellow Democrat, said during what she called the historic bill signing ceremony. Benson also praised a new law that will make it a crime to intimidate or otherwise threaten election workers in an attempt to stop them from performing their duties. Penalties would start at 93 days in jail and up to $500 fine for a first offense. Obviously, I'm not for intimidating anybody, but what is intimidation? If I go outside of a place where there's voting and I have open carry, which is my right, is that intimidation? I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying that technically by rights, I should be able to open carry outside of the building. Is that intimidation? Or is it just me going with my rights, you know? Again, I would never do something like that, but it's just something, the first thing that I thought of is define intimidation. That's what I'm trying to get at. Define it. Who is going to define it? Just like hate speech, no such thing, because you can't define it, and hate speech is free speech. We are here to protect the people who protect democracy. Benson said, arguing the recent escalation of election worker intimidation is the result of misinformation that has wrongly flowed into our democracy for far too long. Oh, Al Gore recently said that we need to cut down on alternative media, make sure it's only legacy media that gets out there. We need to control the information. Another of the bills Whitmer signed Thursday will attempt to regulate a new frontier of political misinformation. It will require disclaimers on political deepfakes and campaign ads created using AI. Violators would be subject to fines between $250 and $1,000. See, that seems to me a new frontier on political. What if I make a political deepfake? Would I be subject to fines? I'm a little confused on that. Crazed and debunked legal theories. The new law governing election certification aligns Michigan with the Federal Electoral Count Reform Act. Oh, gosh. No. Which was introduced in Congress with a handful of GOP co-sponsors and signed last year by Democratic President Joe Biden. Among other things, the federal law makes clear that the VP has a ministerial duty to count electoral votes that states send to Congress, contradicting Trump's claim that former VP Mike Pence could and should have blocked certification of 2020 presidential election. The new Michigan law similarly states that partisan election canvassers at both the county and state levels have a ministerial, and I don't know why I can't say that right now, clerical and non-discretionary duty to certify results based on results compiled by local clerks. You know, I'm going to go off really quick on a small tangent. I don't know if you guys saw that right now they are talking about all these illegal immigrants that have come in through the border. They're talking about enlisting them and letting them, if they join the military, that they can become legal. Because the military is not getting their numbers, right? Nobody wants to join because who wants to be with a corrupt government? You know, sell your soul to the corrupt government. But what I talked about with my buddies is it's too perfect, right? The actual Americans would never go against Americans. If the government said, hey, you're going to go and take over Detroit right now, Americans would be like, no, I'm going to fight for the people in Detroit. You know, I'm going to fight for my family. I'm not going to go. I would fight the government on my family side if it came down to that. And a majority of the military was like that. Now our military is crippled. 937% of the fighter pilots have heart disease, 937% increase in heart disease in our pilots. That's the proper way to say it. So our military has been crippled and nobody wants to join. And now they're going to let illegals join. They have no qualms about going against Americans. They have no vested interest in this establishment. They didn't build it. They don't have anything benefited from it. They will be benefited if they do what the government says, because they'll be allowed to stay and they'll have food and shelter. It's so incredibly dangerous. And it's going on right now. And I got reminded of it because, them calling my nephew the week he turned 18. And yeah, they're going to fix that low recruitment rate with illegals. Very dangerous stuff. The Michigan measure also speeds up the timeline by completing the post-election canvass and clarifies that only governor can submit at least a list of only the governor can submit a list of presidential electors to Congress. That's an attempt to limit confusion over alternate or false elector slates, like the kind Trump's campaign organized in 2020, including in Michigan, where several Republicans are now fighting related criminal charges. The charges will remove ambiguity and ensure courts are the primary venue for contested elections. Kevin Johnson, co-founder of the National Election Reformers Network, told lawmakers last month in a legislative hearing. The law will also give legislative leaders the ability to nominate individuals to fill vacancies on the bipartisan board of state canvassers, a task previously reserved for the leaders of each major political party. 1 second. Sorry. Hopefully, I just turned my porch light on. I forgot to have it on. My mom is in the driveway. Hopefully she doesn't knock on the door and make my dogs bark. So where was I? Sorry about that. Okay, I'm just going to reread this. The law will also give legislative leaders the ability to nominate individuals to fill vacancies on the bipartisan board of state canvassers, a task previously reserved for the leaders of each major political party. Sponsoring Senator Jeremy Moss of Southfield has acknowledged that change will minimize the role of Michigan Republican Party Chair Christina Caramo, a 2020 election denier who refused to concede her 14-point loss in the 2020 Secretary of State race. So there you have it. They're saying her name right out. They're trying to take away her power because she's an election denier. I don't think she denied an election happened. And here's the thing. My neighbor says you can't prove it. You can't prove that Trump won. You're right. Because the system is so skewed, there's so much deceit. The fact is, there's proof coming out, but people won't believe it. It doesn't, ultimately, it's such chaos, doesn't matter. I know. I trust myself. I trust myself and what I see. I trust my senses. And so I don't need some authority to tell me the truth. I can find it for myself, and if it resonates, I go with it. Now, am I always right? Of course not. But I'm certainly not going to listen to authority and wait for them to prove it when they're the ones that did it. Under the new law, the Michigan GOP chair will still be able to nominate 3 candidates the next time a Republican seat is vacated on the 4-member board of state canvassers. But GOP leader in the House and Senate will also be able to nominate 1 person each, and the governor will then pick from those 5. The Michigan law builds on last year's federal legislation to ward off chaos in future elections. Moss said last month in committee testimony, Trump's lies in the 2020 election targeted Detroit, and his supporters tried to throw out votes primarily from Black citizens. Moss added Thursday, drawing applause from the NAACP Detroit President Wendell Anthony. The new laws will create a clear process free from illegal obstruction to certify the 2024 election. No more craze and debunked legal theories about how electors can convene, how our electoral college votes are sent to Congress, and no more fake slates. Well, like I said, it's going to actually cause more chaos. That's my prediction. Switching gears once again, Las Vegas to LA. Electric high-speed rail line just got $3 billion to break ground. I've been talking about the high-speed rail for a while now, and most people say that it'll never happen. They've tried it before and so on and so forth, but it's like, this is the grand plan, man. They want high-speed rails and no cars, so they got to get it going. Brightline West, a future electric high-speed rail between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, is being awarded $3 billion by the Biden admin. This just came out, by the way, December 6th. The $3 billion in funding, part of $6 billion previously earmarked for high-speed rail, has come from the Biden admin's bipartisan infrastructure law as part of its federal-state partnership program. Brightline, okay, the other $3 billion will go to the public high-speed Los Angeles to San Fran rail project. So they're starting out in the West, and that is because they have way more land out in the West that is all off limits now. It's going to be conservation zone. Part of America the Beautiful. The 30% mostly is coming from the West. Brightline West will be a privately owned 218-mile all-electric high-speed rail service that will include a flagship station in Las Vegas with additional stations in Apple Valley, Hesperia, and Rancho Cucamonga. At speeds of more than 186 miles per hour, trains will take passengers from Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga, which is 37 miles east of downtown LA, in just 2 hours and 10 minutes, twice as fast as the normal drive time. Yep, I've been out here, actually, let's see, yeah, out here somewhere. I lived out here somewhere for 4 years, and it was an awful desert. Senator Jackie Rosen said from Nevada, this historic high-speed rail project will be a game changer for Nevada's tourism economy and transportation. It'll bring more visitors to our state, reduce traffic, create thousands of good-paying jobs, and decrease carbon emissions, all while relying on local union labor. Florida-based Brightline Holdings is expected to model Las Vegas-LA rail line on its high-speed route between Miami and Orlando, the U.S.'s only privately owned and operated intercity passenger railroad. So this Brightline Holdings, how do they have the private high-speed rail deal? Like in Florida and now in California. Like, who are these people? They're owned by the Fortress Investment Group, which is an American investment management firm based in New York City. It's a private equity firm that was started in 1998 by Wes Edens and Rob Kaufman. And founded privately, let's see, down here in 2023, Mubadala Investment Company announced that it would acquire a majority of stake in Fortress. It was to acquire 60% stakes for $3 billion from the SoftBank Group. The deal was expected to close by early 2024 and would leave Mubadala with a total of 70% stakes in Fortress. However, the investment deal is being scrutinized by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Mubadala's intended investment was a concern for the U.S. over UAE's growing relations with China. In early 2019, they took 10% stake of Fortress, which got clearance for purchase from CIFIS. So, something I'm going to have to look even more into, because obviously it doesn't go all the way down the rabbit hole, if that's even possible. But it's something that I'm interested in. Why are they allowed to own this high-speed rail? And who owns them? And obviously, if it's someone from UAE, that would be a conflict of interest. Especially, like it said, they're working with China. Now, don't get me wrong, China and United Nations is in the United Nations, as is United States. So we're all really working, our governments are all working together. But something that we need to be aware of. Brightline West estimates it will remove 3 million cars from I-15 annually, reducing 400,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. It also anticipates creating an astounding 35,000 union jobs. The federal funding will enable the project, which is aimed to be open by 2028, to begin construction. Well, another prediction for you, 2028. I don't know. That's when the United Nations will have taken over the United States, in my opinion. But you got to also think about the fake alien invasion, Project Bluebeam, has to happen before 2030 as well. And so 2027, 2028 is my guess on that, because I think that's going to be the final nail in the coffin for a new world order. You have to have an existential threat that we all come together. So, but first we have to be at war with each other. And then the aliens say, stop it. And then we have a new world order. I know that sounds possibly, depends on how much research you've done, but it sounds cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But Project Bluebeam has been around for a while, and I actually want to show you this. The Video Game Awards happened this month, and there was a crazy Video Game Awards. There was a hologram outside that's totally part of the Project Bluebeam coming up. Oh, I wish I could find it. Sorry, guys. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I'm trying one more thing. But it looks so real. So right outside of the Video Game Awards, they had, like I said, a hologram where it looks like somebody's coming out of a portal. And it looks very, very real. Of course, I won't be able to find it. I'll find it for next time. But Project Bluebeam. You know what? I will show it on Wednesday, because Wednesday I'm talking about space exclusively on Rumble. And so I will show you some hologram technology, and I will talk about Project Bluebeam on Wednesday. So come hang out with me over on Rumble. So this just shows my proposal for American High-Speed Rail Network. I don't know if this proposal will do anything, but we'll come down here. President Biden announces high-speed rail connecting Las Vegas to Los Angeles. And then there's also this rail system. You're looking at the future of the high-speed rail in California. President Biden and Democrats delivered 14 million jobs and made infrastructure investments across America, and we're just getting started. There we go. So this is China. 2008 is when they began. Only had a couple. Now, 2023, this is China's high-speed rail system. So they are the model for our government in almost every way. When it comes to 5G and social credit score and now high-speed rails, it's like, yeah, when they opened up in the 90s, wasn't it they opened up in the 90s? They said, we'll let some capitalism in, but really what they did is let the floodgates of socialism out. At least that's what it looks like to me. Now, am I against high-speed rails and a whole? Of course not. But the problem is they're replacing cars, private cars, because there's no private property in the communist utopia that they're trying to build for us. So if they weren't trying to replace cars and just trying to add high-speed rails, I'm all for it. I'm cool with that. Oh yeah, look at this, man, the Amish. One day, they build all this in one day, which is another amazing thing about the Amish. Of course, they don't get vaccines and they don't have all of the crazy allergies and autism and everything else that we have. There's just something to be said about natural immunity and about man-made products in our body. But high-speed rail, let's see. I thought I had another article on the rail. Or another map. maybe I have to continue going down farther to find the map that I had. Oh well, you see it on the thumbnail. And of course, it's part of the 2050 Hunger Games Society that they're building for us. Which, speaking of Hunger Games Society, this is Sam Tripoli from the Tinfoil Hat podcast. I think it's a pretty good podcast. 15-minute cities are here. Congestion zone, which I have discussed, but this guy, 1 minute and 13 seconds, talks about what's going on in New York, which is, of course, what's going to happen. It's going to spread if we allow it.
New York City has just become the first place in America to charge its residents for going to work. So New York is now introducing a congestion pricing. They're going to be charging for the amount of cars that are coming through New York, and they're charging insane fees. So this is what they're calling the congestion zone. This is from 60th Street all the way down here past the Brooklyn Bridge, and this is where you're going to get charged for going into this area.
Now, it's called the ultra low emission zone in Oxford, and so it's going to have several different names, okay? This is all 15-minute city stuff.
More specifically, this is Lower Manhattan, Soho, 60th Street down has the Empire State Building. Anybody that takes a car, a bus, anything into this area is going to get charged just for driving there. And you may think this is just going to be a few pennies or $1, but between the weekday hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on the weekends, small trucks are going to get charged $24 just to get into the city. Large trucks, $36. Taxis, $1.25 surcharge per ride.
Well, you know where that cost is going, right? It's going to cost you more to ride in a taxi or an Uber.
$15 just for your regular car. You guys let me know, does this make you want to visit New York more or less?
And I love this down here. Readers added context. New York is not charging its residents to go to work, as the video claims. It is charging people who drive into the specified area in a vehicle. Other means of transport, such as walking or taking the train, will not be charged. You can walk or ride your bike. But rich people, they don't care about the fine. That's the problem. They don't care. They don't need to care. So it's only poor people that get hurt by this. I have another video to share. This one worse than the last. This is David Icke, by the way, cult-owned demon incarnate, EU chief Ursula von der Leyen describes carbon dioxide as a pollutant. This tells us one of two things. It could be that she is so monumentally stupid that she really does believe this gas of life, without which we would have no food, is a pollutant. That is possible in the sense that the cult does use stupid, useful idiots to implement the will of its psychopaths. But far, far more likely giving her position is that she knows she is lying. In that case, she is a psychopath.
We all know if we want to keep global warming below the tipping point of 1.5 degrees, we need to cut global emissions. And there's a way to cut emissions while fostering innovation and growth. Put a price on carbon.
Put a price on the air you breathe. Now you're born into a tax system right off the bat. You're alive, you're taxed. That's what carbon tax is.
A market-driven instrument, and the message is very clear. You're polluting, you must pay a price. You want to avoid the payment? Well, then innovate and decarbonize. Carbon pricing nudges the private sector towards innovation. It makes heavy polluters pay a fair price, and the revenues can be reinvested in the fight against climate change, in innovation, and in a just transition.
Define just. Define fair. Define hate speech. Define it. That is the problem. I'm not too happy with Jordan Peterson lately, but he was right about that. The problem is who is to define it, and who the hell are you to define it for me, and so on and so forth. What's fair? I'm switching all up. Ford Marshall plant dubbed worst deal of 2023. I did cover this last week, but this article out of CapCon, Michigan Capital Confidential, had something interesting to say that I just wanted to add to it. So, Ford Motor Company Blue Oval Battery Park in Marshall is the worst economic development deal of 2023, the Center for Economic Accountability has announced. The center exists to change the way Americans think and feel about economic development in their communities, according to the website. In its report, the center, which is led by former Mackinac Center staffer John Mozina, explains that the deal required a pledge of $1.7 billion from Michigan taxpayers to be paid through direct cash giveaways and tax abatements. But the center takes special aim at aggressive and dishonest attempts by project backers to manufacture public consent and to scare off dissenters. Residents who spoke out against the project were sent postcards showing their faces crossed out by red X's, according to the Detroit Free Press report, which I read on this when it came out. Very good report out of the Detroit Free Press. I was actually impressed for once. And they also talked about Jim Chapman having the same lawyers as Whitmer in that article. So a lot of backdoor deals. Reporter Dave Boucher called the threats part of a larger campaign to shout down opponents of the project, funded by dark money tied to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the Democratic Party's national apparatus. The reported use of political consultants to run a smear campaign against skeptical local residents set Michigan subsidies for Ford's Marshall Battery Plant apart from all the other terrible corporate welfare deals across the country, said Mozina in a statement accompanying the award announcement. Right. Again, proof that our own government will go after the people. They will entrap us. They will target us with these kind of campaigns if we say we don't want your stupid shit in our backyard. This is war. And again, I hate to say it, I don't want this to be so, but it doesn't always look like bombs. There's information, there's psychological warfare, and that is exactly what happened. They're trying to shut you up with fear, using fear to make you afraid to speak out against something that you are against, because your government might target you using political consultants to run smear campaigns. It's one thing for politicians to use fuzzy math to throw massive amounts of public money at a giant corporation so they can take credit with voters for so-called job creation. We see that all the time. Mozina added, this award was nailed down for Michigan when a governor's political cronies reportedly pushed out campaign-style mailers and robocalls against average, everyday people who dared to exercise their fundamental right to ask their elected officials for straight answers to questions that mattered to their community. In the end, the $3.5 billion project was put on pause during the UAW strike. After the strike ended, Ford announced a scaled-back version of the Blue Oval Battery Park, $2.2 billion investment with 1,700 jobs to be created rather than 2,500. And the incentives for the project are supposedly going to be rolled back as well. We'll see. Getting down to the wire here, I want to make sure that I shared all of the good stuff. Okay, here we go. Leaked document says U.S. is willing to build energy projects in case Snake River dams are breached. The draft agreement says the government will help plan and pay for tribes in the Pacific Northwest to develop enough clean energy resources to serve as replacements. I'm not going to get into this entire thing, but I just wanted to give an update. I did the 3-part dam series on hydro facilities here in Michigan, but the Snake River over in Washington State was in my videos because the tribes have been trying to get them removed for quite some time. And this leak basically shows that the government is going to probably remove those dams. Congress would still have to agree before any of the lower Snake River dams in Washington State are removed. That's unlikely to happen in the near future, so they say. Something to keep our eye out on. The UN Secretary General invoked Article 99, the first time since 1971, to push for a Gaza ceasefire. I'm not going to get into this entire article. I wanted to just point out that according to prophecy, which I'm not saying that I know all about prophecy. In fact, I think that really no one understands prophecy, even if they think they do. But there are people right now actively trying to bring the prophecies of Revelation to life. There are people in Texas that are trying to breed cows that are all red because that's in the prophecy. So I'm going to go over it. Again, we don't know exactly what the prophecy means. We can't take it literally and think that we're right, but some people are doing just that. But the first thing, the revelation of the Antichrist through the peace treaty. Now, this could all be symbolism. I think it's fascinating, and so I'm sharing it with you. That's all that this is, okay? It's not that I subscribe to this or believe this 100% or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know about any of it, but I was fascinated and flabbergasted that people were actually trying to fulfill the prophecy when the prophecy says the Antichrist is going to come and it's going to be, really bad for quite some time. Why would you want that? The first event on the timeline will be the revelation of the Antichrist. A peace treaty will be signed between Israel and her neighbors. Now, this came out in 2020. So the Article 99 made me think of it. This will serve to reveal the identity of the Antichrist in the church. In 2 Thessalonians 2, Paul tells us that Jesus won't return until the man of sin, aka the Antichrist, is revealed. And Daniel 9 tells us that the Antichrist will confirm a covenant for a week, Hebrew for 7 years. Now, this is the end of 2023, so 7 years from now would be the end of 2030. That's one of the reasons why the pieces kind of come together for me, and it makes me wonder, again, are they actively trying to make this happen? That the peace treaty will happen this year? And then the Antichrist will therefore be revealed by the confirmation of this prophesized covenant. The reason why we call this covenant a peace treaty is because the Bible tells us that while people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. The peace treaty will be intended to establish a 7-year period of peace. This will be a time of ceasefire, a time of peace and prosperity for the world. What we must remember is that when we speak of conflict in the Middle East between Israel and the Palestinians, it is not just between these two nations, but a conflict between worldwide allied forces. Israel is backed by USA and its allies, while countries like Russia and China are backing the other side. So if there is a war between Israel and the Arabs, it actually implies a world war. Consequently, once the peace treaty is signed, the threat of war will be gone. Everyone will rejoice because the Middle East will finally be at peace. The church must be vigilant of the man that signs this peace treaty, as he will be the one that the Bible calls the man of sin. Don't know if this is what's going to happen, but the other thing I want to say is this right here: the rebuilding of the temple. This is something that I think about because this is called a temple too. And if the kingdom of God is within you, and this is a temple, is it possible that they're not talking about a physical third temple, but rather a temple being built here? That's why you can't trust prophecy and just say it's literal. We don't know. The second event that will take place after the peace treaty is signed is the rebuilding of the temple. The scripture tells us that the Antichrist will enter the temple of God, and this cannot happen unless a temple is built. But again, this is called a temple. So the Antichrist's next agenda after signing the peace treaty will be to build the temple. Now, it's possible that it's talking about this temple right here. It's also possible that they're talking about actually building a physical temple. Now, there is a group they call far right over in Israel that wants to destroy the Dome of the Rock because that's a sacred site, and they want to build the third temple there. I don't know. Obviously, this is all complex, but it's possible. Part of building the third temple is killing, I think, 3 red cows, or maybe it's just 1. But again, the fact that people are in our government and Israeli's government, they're actively trying to fulfill prophecy is concerning to me. I don't know why they would be trying to do that. Zoltan the Man says, speaking of chaos in the cities, I'm officially moving out of Grand Rapids. Just happy to announce. Congratulations. Obviously, you must be moving to the country. So good for you. I hope that it has enough space for cows and chickens and stuff. But try to hide that you have a cow. Otherwise, they might come after you to force you to give your cows cow fart suppressants. So maybe you stick with chickens. I don't know. They're going after chickens too. So congrats. And that's a step in the right direction. I really worry for my family that lives in the city. I hope they can get out when the time comes. All right, I'm just doing one last look-see. I think that I have shared everything except for this very inspirational video. I want to try to find inspirational people, because people are what is going to change the world. And so my goal for 2030, whoa, if I survived it then, my goal for 2024 is to end my videos with an inspirational human being to show the way for us and how we in our own lives could potentially be inspirational to others and be a pebble in the pond that causes the ripple of goodness, truth and love. So that's something I'm working on. I know that I talk about a lot of terrible things that are going on, but there are so many people out in the world that are doing good things, and they also need to be highlighted. So something I'm working on. This is a rap song by this kid. It's only 58 seconds. I think it's awesome, and so I'm going to share it with you before I head out.
Toby Jim Simon and Hot. What are we talking about? What is the plot? If you are a Susie, you can't be a Scott. I know it's a doozy, can't be what you're not. Ain't getting to heaven with nail paint. It's gonna be hot where you're going, that's Hellgate. They gon' have fun with your soul, gon' be jailbait. There's only two, you put more weight, it felt great. I'm homeschooled, I don't follow them. They look like alien hollow men. He coming back, he gon' swallow them. I follow God and I'll never acknowledge them. I look around, I see a circus. All of these trannies are making me nervous, but I serve a big God and I got a purpose. All of these demons will burn in the furnace.
Every day new gender. I post the truth to the youth and you censor. Can't seem to get rid of me, do better. It's 2023 and still there is only two genders. Two genders. I quote the facts, you delete, you too tender. Man, y'all gotta do better. I love the Bible and it says there's only two genders.
I thought that hit pretty good. This is another Twitter that I follow. I highly recommend you follow as well if you do the Twitter thing. But this little boy has been getting a lot of backlash for making what viewers are calling a transphobic song. I think that it's a great song. I don't think there's anything transphobic about it. I think that transphobia means you're afraid of trans people. That's not at all what's going on there, obviously. It's just the truth being spoken. And again, I love human beings. I think telling them the truth is the best way to help them. And definitely, allowing them to lie to themselves and all their family members lying to them, it doesn't help them whatsoever. In the end, you can't get back your beautiful body once you mutilate it. And so we need to help people fix what's in their temple instead of allowing them and helping them do these medical procedures and so on and so forth. So I thought it hit pretty hard. I liked it. I'll have the link for everything I talked about in the description down below, including that article or that study out of Nature magazine. So check it out. Tomorrow will be the Michigan Strategic Fund live stream. It's not glorious, but I think it's really important to hold our government accountable and where our money is going. So that will be tomorrow. And then Wednesday will be the aliens and space over on Rumble at 10 a.m. So I will see you and hang out with you on Wednesday. And I will be in the chat for tomorrow, but obviously I won't be talking. That'll be the Michigan Strategic Fund. So thank you guys again. I love you all. Stay safe out there, and congrats, Zoltan the Man, one more time for getting out of the city. I hope that you all can do the same, honestly. It's time to get out of the cities. Peace out, guys.